Talk to yourself like this, and your life will change. There exists an ancient secret, a profound truth, meticulously guarded not by conspiracy, but by the very nature of human awareness. A wisdom that the most successful individuals you have ever admired, those living the lives you quietly yearn for, have never openly shared with you. This revelation, contrary to popular belief and modern fixations, has absolutely nothing to do with accumulated wealth, influential connections, or mere happenstance. It transcends the superficial markers of achievement, delving instead into the bedrock of human experience. The great thinkers of history, those profound minds who ventured into the deepest layers of the human psyche, Carl Jung foremost among them, unearthed this secret long before the contemporary world possessed any concrete language or readily available framework for its articulation. They discovered that the most accomplished individuals on this planet, across all fields and endeavors, are those who have not only recognized, but also mastered the profound art of directing and governing their own consciousness. Their inner world, far from being a chaotic free-for-all, is a meticulously curated and powerfully steered landscape. More often than not, this transformative knowledge has remained hidden, almost as if the widespread understanding of its power might somehow threaten the established position or perceived superiority of those who already possess it. Yet, real difference between those who thrive and those who merely survive is not rooted in innate talent, impressive academic credentials, or the fortunate opportunities that happen to cross one's path. Instead, the fundamental distinction is subtly concealed within the continuous, intricate conversation currently spinning inside your head, the dialogue happening right now, in this very moment, as you navigate your day. While you may walk down the street mentally scolding yourself, replaying past mistakes on an endless, self-defeating loop, the people you admire are utilizing that same invaluable inner space to proactively develop themselves, refine their strategies, and meticulously build the foundations for their next victory. They are not merely observers of their thoughts, but active architects of their mental landscape. Consider this stark contrast. While you might inadvertently use your inner voice to rehearse potential failures, to mentally walk through worst-case scenarios, they employ that identical, powerful voice to rehearse success, to vividly imagine favorable outcomes and reinforce their capabilities. While you might inadvertently speak to yourself as though you were your own harshest critic and worst adversary, undermining your efforts and eroding your confidence, they speak to themselves as though they were their most devoted, trusted, and unwavering companion. This distinction is not merely semantic. It represents a fundamental divergence in psychological orientation and internal programming. This isn't empty motivational rhetoric, nor is it some naive suggestion to simply think positive thoughts in a superficial manner, hoping for a magical outcome. This, as Carl Jung himself profoundly pointed out, is the very core mechanism through which reality itself is constructed, interpreted, and ultimately shaped by the individual psyche. Your internal dialogue, the incessant stream of thoughts and interpretations, is quite literally the programming language of your entire life, dictating your perceptions, reactions, and choices. And unfortunately, for the vast majority of people, they are unknowingly operating on faulty software. This internal software is often loaded with metaphorical viruses, limiting beliefs, self-doubt, and negative assumptions that were installed in their minds years ago, often without their conscious awareness or explicit permission. These programs run silently in the background, subtly sabotaging their efforts and shaping their reality. Conversely, the wealthy, the powerful, and the spiritually fulfilled individuals of the world have dedicated themselves to learning how to debug that corrupted code. They have meticulously worked to identify and dismantle the outdated, unhelpful programs, and crucially, to install new, empowering programs that consistently work in their favor, aligning their inner world with their outer aspirations. Drawing deeply from the wisdom that flows through Jung's expansive concept of the collective unconscious, these individuals have come to a profound understanding. Their thoughts do not merely reflect an existing objective reality. Instead, they actively and powerfully create it, shaping their personal experience of the world. While many have skillfully utilized this knowledge, consciously or unconsciously, to build entire empires, to achieve extraordinary feats, or to cultivate deep spiritual fulfillment, you, perhaps unknowingly, may have been using it only to manufacture excuses, to reinforce limitations, or to justify inaction. But the time for such unwitting self-sabotage ends today. Today, a new path unfolds, for I am going to hand you the very same code, the essential principles and practical techniques they have been employing for their own benefit. Drawing from the transformative depth psychology of Carl Jung, I am going to show you step by step how to fundamentally reprogram your mind in just 7 days. This journey will empower you to stop settling for the limited life you may have mistakenly assumed you deserved, and instead to begin consciously and deliberately constructing the life you genuinely desire, a life reflective of your highest potential. As Jung famously stated, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. This journey is about reclaiming that fate and transforming it into destiny. If this message resonates deeply, if it speaks to something authentic and real stirring inside you, then I urge you to subscribe to Carl Jung Philosophy and hit the like button, because what comes next may genuinely, fundamentally, and irrevocably change the way you perceive yourself, your capabilities, and the people around you. It's an invitation to a deeper understanding. Right now, in this precise second, as you read these words, there is an incessant voice speaking inside your mind. It has been your constant companion, your most faithful, and sometimes your most brutal traveling partner for years, conversing with you since the very moment you opened your eyes this morning. It narrates, it comments, it judges, and it predicts. What most people fail to notice, or are perhaps too afraid to confront head-on, is this profound truth. That ceaseless inner conversation is constructing your lived experience moment by moment, without pause, without rest, weaving the fabric of your reality. The sheer volume of this internal activity is staggering. Approximately 60,000 thoughts pass through your mind every single day. And the most astonishing and often disheartening statistic is that the vast majority of people spend roughly 90% of those thoughts simply repeating the exact same mental patterns they engaged in yesterday. They awaken each morning, and the mind immediately begins playing the same worn record, an album of familiar anxieties, repetitive complaints, and self-imposed limitations, often inherited or unconsciously absorbed. But what if you could not only interrupt, but completely transform that entrenched inner dialogue in a mere 7 days? What if you could begin speaking to yourself with the same profound clarity and unshakable conviction that those high-achieving individuals you admire speak to themselves, mirroring the wisdom of a genuine sage? What if you could consciously direct those 60,000 daily thoughts, thread by meticulous thread, toward weaving the rich, vibrant tapestry of the life you actually want to inhabit, rather than a life of default or quiet desperation? Your current reality, in all its facets and complexities, serves as a flawless mirror, reflecting precisely how you have spoken to yourself up until this moment. If you are consistently experiencing financial strain, it is imperative to listen carefully to the subtle whispers and overt declarations you have been making to yourself about money, abundance, and your own worthiness. If your relationships repeatedly fail to thrive or consistently fall short of your expectations, pay very close attention to the internal narrative you carry about love, connection, and your inherent worthiness of both. The outer world, without exception, and in every single instance, is a direct, undeniable reflection of your inner one. This is not mysticism, it is a fundamental principle of psychological projection and manifestation. Tragically, most people's relationship with themselves is, to put it plainly, an abusive one. The crushing, demeaning, and utterly contemptuous words they would never, under any circumstance, dare to utter to a cherished friend or even a casual acquaintance, they direct at themselves without a moment's hesitation, often unconsciously. Yet, when you deliberately transform this foundational conversation, when you cultivate a new internal dynamic, your entire external existence begins to subtly, then dramatically, shift around it. The real awakening is recognizing that you have been programming yourself unconsciously through your internal dialogue all along. and that this programming has dictated your experiences. Now, you are about to learn how to undertake this vital programming deliberately, consciously guided by Carl Jung's profound principle of bringing the shadow, the unconscious, hidden aspects of oneself, into the illuminating light of conscious awareness, thereby integrating and healing. The common human condition sees most people existing largely on autopilot. They rise each morning and their mind immediately launches into the same exhausted pre-programmed script. I am too tired. I am not good enough. I cannot handle this. This is too difficult. Does any of that sound achingly familiar? This pervasive mental noise operates much like a broken radio station, perpetually playing in the background of your life, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And for the vast majority of people, that station plays only the saddest, most defeated songs from an archive of past failures, crushed hopes, and unresolved fears, reinforcing a narrative of limitation. Yet, the profound power to change that station, to select a completely different broadcast, has always resided dormant within your hands, waiting to be activated. When you consciously begin speaking to yourself with the same intentionality, confidence, and constructive outlook that genuinely successful people employ, everything in your world begins to transform. Take a moment to think of the most confident, most accomplished person you know personally. Do you honestly believe they wake up each morning and immediately begin listing all the reasons they cannot succeed, cataloging their perceived inadequacies? Do they spend their precious days consumed in relentless self-criticism, constantly doubting their abilities and fixating obsessively on every possible thing that could potentially go wrong? Of course not. They have learned, often through trial and error, to utilize their internal dialogue, not as a tool of self-destruction or limitation, but as a finely tuned instrument of deliberate creation, shaping their inner world to align with their highest aspirations. We were all diligently taught in school how to read, how to write, and how to perform complex calculations. But not a single one of us was ever explicitly taught how to speak to ourselves in ways that genuinely inspire, uplift, and elevate our spirit. Consequently, by default, we unconsciously absorbed the conversational patterns of the people around us. Perhaps from well-meaning but worried parents, perhaps from anxious or overworked teachers, or perhaps from a broader culture that often tragically confuses genuine self-criticism with the virtue of humility. Your thoughts, those silent declarations within, generate your emotions. Your emotions, in turn, direct your actions and reactions, and your actions, consistently applied, deliver your results. This self-perpetuating cycle either keeps you imprisoned within a loop of limited experiences or, if consciously directed, sets you entirely free to create anew. When you consciously and deliberately direct your thinking, you inherently begin to feel different. When you feel different, experiencing a shift in your emotional landscape, you naturally behave differently, your actions reflecting this newfound internal state. And when you consistently behave differently, you begin receiving completely different results from life, breaking free from old patterns and manifesting new outcomes. As Carl Jung himself profoundly emphasized, the human mind cannot reliably distinguish between what is objectively real in the external world and what is vividly, consistently imagined in the internal world. Both hold significant power. When you consistently tell yourself that you are confident, that you are capable, and that you are profoundly worthy of success, your mind, accepting this as an absolute truth, begins the remarkable process of reorganizing your entire biology, your neural pathways, and your self-perception around this powerful declaration. When you consistently speak as though you are already becoming the person you aspire to be, you literally begin to embody those very qualities in the present moment, manifesting them from within. However, most people inadvertently do the precise opposite. They diligently rehearse failure, they habitually practice anxiety, and they relentlessly reinforce their own limitations with every passing thought. They wake up and mentally plan for things to go wrong, and then they genuinely wonder why life feels so relentlessly difficult and unyielding. When you fundamentally change the way you speak to yourself, you inevitably change the way you treat yourself. And when you change the way you treat yourself, your entire posture in the world shifts, becoming more confident, more authentic, more grounded. And when your posture shifts in this profound way, the world itself begins responding to you differently. People interact with you with a newfound respect. Opportunities arrive at your door through entirely different, often unexpected channels. This is not self-deception, or a mere performance intended to impress others. This is the profound act of aligning your internal dialogue, your deepest beliefs, with who you truly are at your core, and, crucially, with who you are actively in the process of becoming. This is the conscious and deliberate breaking of old, conditioned habits and the intentional construction of a new, empowered self, one carefully chosen, conversation at a time. It's an act of deep self-authorship. The extraordinary beauty of this transformative practice lies in its accessibility. It costs absolutely nothing. You require no special equipment, no expensive certifications, no one's explicit permission, nor their external approval to begin. All that is genuinely required is that you begin paying meticulous, genuine attention to how you currently speak to yourself, and that you consciously choose a different, more empowering path each time you notice the old, limiting internal dialogue pulling you backward into familiar patterns of self-sabotage. Over the next 7 days, with focused intention, you are going to transform your entire relationship with yourself through the power of conscious and deliberate internal dialogue. The 7-day period is not arbitrary. It is an ideal duration for beginning to fire new neural pathways, establishing fresh mental templates, and breaking the entrenched automatic patterns that have long dominated your mind. Within these 7 days, you will build enough genuine momentum to truly feel a significant shift within your being. You will begin feeling different, behaving differently, and witnessing genuinely different, more favorable outcomes materializing around you as your inner world reorganizes your outer experience. Throughout these 7 focused days, you will gracefully move through 3 distinct yet interconnected levels of profound transformation. The first is simply becoming acutely aware of how you currently speak to yourself. For most people, possess no conscious awareness of their inner dialogue whatsoever. It operates largely on an unseen, unheard level. The second level involves learning to interrupt those old, unhelpful patterns and deliberately replacing them with new, more constructive ones, consciously steering your internal narrative. The third and culminating level is elevating your internal dialogue to the level of the extraordinary person you are truly destined to become, speaking to yourself as your highest self would. The paramount key to lasting success in this practice is unwavering consistency, not unattainable perfection. You do not need to catch every single negative thought or eliminate them entirely. You simply need to be more conscious than unconscious, more deliberate than automatic, tilting the scales towards intentionality. Every single time you catch yourself engaged in a limiting inner conversation and consciously choose a better, more empowering one, you are actively rewiring your mind, strengthening new neural connections, and creating your new reality along the transformative path Jung eloquently termed individuation, the process of becoming one's whole, true self. Your environment matters enormously during these crucial 7 days of transformation. Make a deliberate effort to surround yourself with people, books, audio content, and visual media that actively support and reinforce the new, positive inner conversation you are diligently building. Simultaneously, limit your exposure to negativity, harsh criticism, and the constant messaging of limitation that permeates so much of modern culture. Remember, you are attempting to install a brand new, highly optimized operating system in your mind, a complete upgrade. And that complex process becomes dramatically easier, more effective, and far less challenging when you are not being continuously bombarded by the old, outdated, and often corrupted programming from every conceivable direction. This conscious curation of your environment is a powerful act of self-care and strategic support. Now, let us embark upon the first 2 days of this journey. Days 1 and 2 are dedicated to the foundational principles of awareness and intervention. During this initial phase, your primary task is to become a neutral and impartial observer of your own thinking process. Most people have become so deeply fused with their thoughts, so intertwined with their inner narratives, that they actually mistake themselves for their thoughts. They believe, "I am my thoughts." But as Jung brilliantly observed, you are not your thoughts. You are, in essence, the consciousness that possesses the inherent power to choose, to observe, and to direct its thoughts. Your task during these first 2 days is beautifully simple, yet profoundly powerful. Catch yourself. When you notice yourself speaking to yourself in critical, negative, or limiting ways, simply observe it. Just notice it. You do not need to change anything immediately. Just cultivate a genuine sense of curiosity about your own mental patterns, approaching them with a detached, scientific interest. Ask yourself without judgment, how frequently do you criticize yourself throughout the day? What specific situations, people, or external triggers tend to activate this negative inner conversation? What are the most common limiting phrases or self-defeating narratives your mind tends to generate? When you catch yourself in these patterns, intentionally use the power of the deliberate pause. Draw a slow, conscious breath, allowing yourself a moment of space. Simply acknowledge that you are observing your thought, rather than being controlled or swept away by it. This conscious awareness, this subtle but profound act of stepping back and truly seeing, rather than being helplessly swept away by the current of your thoughts, is the very first gateway to profound inner freedom. Most people navigate entire days, weeks, even months, without once noticing what they are actually telling themselves. But you are different now. You are actively waking up to the intricate architecture of your own inner world, becoming its conscious architect. Rather than judging yourself for having negative thoughts, which only adds another layer of negativity, approach them with the curious detachment of a scientist examining a phenomenon. Ask yourself sincerely, where did this particular thought originate? Is this thought genuinely serving my highest good, my growth, my intentions? Or is it quietly, subtly working against me? Is this thought rooted in something real and present in this moment? Or is it simply an old, outdated program running on sheer habit, an echo from the past? Look at your own mental patterns not with frustration and disappointment, which are also forms of self-criticism, but with a quality of genuine fascination, a desire to understand. The intervention technique itself is remarkably straightforward, yet it carries the kind of precision and psychological insight that Carl Jung would have recognized and deeply appreciated. When you catch yourself caught inside a negative inner conversation, simply say, either aloud, if appropriate, or internally with conviction, the command, stop, or cancel, or delete. You are quite literally cutting the flow of the old, unhelpful program midstream, interrupting its momentum. Then take another deep, conscious breath, allowing a moment of reset, and consciously select a different thought. You do not need to leap immediately into some wildly optimistic or unconvincing declaration. Simply choose something more neutral, more kind, more genuinely supportive of where you want to go, a step in the right direction. For instance, if you catch yourself thinking, "I always ruin everything," immediately interrupt that debilitating pattern and replace it with a more balanced and empowering thought, like, "I learn and grow from every experience I encounter," continually refining my approach. If your inner voice insistently whispers, "I cannot handle this, it's too much," consciously shift to, "I am discovering creative and effective ways to navigate challenges and get what I truly want, drawing on my inner resources." If the voice declares, "I am not intelligent enough to pursue that goal," you can replace it with, "I am continuously expanding my knowledge, developing my capabilities in new directions, and cultivating my inherent wisdom." The aim, crucially, is never to eliminate negative thoughts entirely. That is neither practically possible nor psychologically necessary. The aim is to develop a conscious awareness of your internal dialogue and to begin deliberately selecting thoughts that consistently support, rather than subtly sabotage, your deepest intentions and highest aspirations. Every single time you execute this simple yet powerful intervention, you strengthen your capacity to be the master of your mind rather than its helpless prisoner, trapped by unconscious programming. Days 3 and 4 carry you to the next level of transformation entirely. These are the days dedicated to profound transformation and deliberate redirection. Now that you have been diligently practicing the vital art of noticing your internal patterns and consistently interrupting them, the time has arrived to consciously and intentionally install new, more empowering ones. Here, you begin the profound practice of speaking to yourself the way you would naturally speak to your closest and most beloved friend, with unwavering support, profound empathy, and genuine belief. You speak to yourself the way you would speak to a young child you adore, or to someone whose well-being and success you would fiercely protect with every fiber of your being. Human beings, astonishingly, are often extraordinarily harsh with themselves. The words they direct inward, the accusations, the contempt, the dismissals, the cutting judgments, are things they would never even dream of saying to another person they genuinely cared about. This internal cruelty is a silent epidemic. But what if you began to extend to yourself the same warmth, the same profound encouragement, and the same patient, unwavering support that you so naturally and effortlessly offer to the people you love most in the world? What if, instead of being your own harshest, most relentless, and unforgiving critic, you made a conscious, revolutionary choice to become your own most devoted advocate, your fiercest champion? During days 3 and 4, commit wholeheartedly to practicing speaking to yourself with genuine compassion, deliberate care, and unwavering kindness. When you inevitably make a mistake, because mistakes are an inherent part of learning and growth, instead of launching an immediate internal assault of self-blame, pause. Ask yourself, with genuine curiosity and a desire for growth, what can I actually learn from this experience? How can I grow from this? When you encounter a difficult problem or an unexpected obstacle, instead of fixating obsessively on all the reasons you cannot possibly overcome it, take a moment to gently remind yourself of every challenge, every seemingly insurmountable hurdle you have already courageously navigated and survived in your past. Draw strength from your own history of resilience. When fear naturally arises, as it will in moments of growth, instead of telling yourself you are weak or inadequate for feeling it, acknowledge how genuinely courageous you are for continuing to move forward, for taking action in spite of that very fear. This reframing is not denial. It is an act of recognizing your innate strength. The art of reframing, or cognitive restructuring, carries extraordinary weight and power during this pivotal phase of the practice. This is Carl Jung's concept of alchemy in its most practical and accessible form, taking the same raw situation, the same external reality, and finding a fundamentally different way to speak about it internally. It's about discovering a different angle from which to approach it, a different, more empowering story to tell yourself about what it truly means and where it is ultimately leading you. For example, instead of declaring, "This is unbearably difficult, I can't do it," consciously try, "This challenge is strengthening me in ways I cannot yet fully see or comprehend, preparing me for something greater." Instead of the self-defeating thought, "I have no idea what I am doing, I'm lost," replace it with, "I am diligently learning everything I need to know as I bravely move forward, acquiring wisdom with each step." Instead of the anxious comparison, "I am falling behind everyone around me, I'm not good enough," consciously shift to, "I am walking my own singular, unique, and unrepeatable path at exactly the right pace for my journey." A particularly powerful linguistic shift is to transform every "I cannot" into "I am learning how to." This seemingly small, almost imperceptible shift in language does something truly remarkable to your internal architecture of belief. It stops firmly closing doors of possibility and instead starts holding them wide open, inviting new experiences and skills. "I cannot speak confidently in front of others" becomes, with intention, "I am learning to communicate with genuine confidence, clarity, and presence." "I cannot build my own business, it's too risky" becomes, "I am learning everything required to create something meaningful and impactful of my own." "I cannot find the right relationship, it's hopeless" transforms into, "I am learning how to cultivate my inner self and naturally draw the right, resonant person into my life." These are not mere semantic games or superficial wordplay. They represent profound structural changes to the inner architecture of your belief system, and they compound with extraordinary power and accelerating momentum over time, reshaping your reality from within. Build profound momentum through small but genuine victories. Make a conscious effort to acknowledge every positive shift, no matter how modest or insignificant it might initially appear. Celebrate every moment of conscious awareness, every single instance where you caught yourself in an old pattern and consciously chose a better, more supportive thought. Your internal dialogue should gradually become a heartfelt celebration of genuine progress, growth, and unfolding potential, rather than a relentless, unforgiving audit of perceived deficiency or inadequacy. Speak to yourself with conviction about what is truly working in your life, what is consistently developing, what new possibilities are becoming available to you. Remember, you are not attempting to convince yourself of something inherently false or untrue. You are instead consciously choosing to focus your invaluable attention and energy on the aspects of reality that genuinely serve your growth, your expansion, and your ultimate well-being, rather than exclusively dwelling on the aspects that merely confirm your existing limitations or anxieties. Both perspectives exist simultaneously, and both are available to you at every single moment. You possess the sovereign power to direct your attention toward what is broken or what is whole, toward what is absent or what is profoundly present, toward what appears impossible or what is entirely within your reach. The choice unequivocally belongs to you and to no one else. Days 5, 6, and 7 represent the culminating phase of elevation and embodiment. This is the period where you consciously stop speaking as the person you currently perceive yourself to be, and instead begin speaking as the person you are, actively, deliberately, and powerfully in the process of becoming. You start conversing with your future self, that confident, accomplished, deeply fulfilled, and integrated version of you that is already present as pure, unrealized potential within the deepest layers of your psyche right now. This is not performance, nor is it pretense or mere role-playing. As Jung brilliantly described it, this is the profound awakening of the archetype that already lives within you, dormant perhaps, but brimming with unrealized potential, waiting to be called forth. Your future self is not some distant, separate being or an unreachable fantasy. That person is intrinsically you, but with different, more empowering habits, different, more profound convictions, different, more uplifting internal conversations, and different, more aligned daily choices. When you begin speaking to yourself as that person, your highest self would speak, you immediately begin embodying those desired qualities in the present moment, rather than passively waiting indefinitely for them to mysteriously arrive. Ask yourself these questions with genuine seriousness and a desire for deep insight. How does your future empowered self speak to itself? When that confident, grounded, and wise version of you encounters a significant obstacle or a challenging setback, what does it say internally? What is its default internal narrative? How does your successful self relate to temporary failures, unexpected setbacks, or moments of uncertainty? What kind of inner conversation does your fulfilled, thriving self maintain throughout an ordinary, everyday day? Begin having those conversations now, not someday in the vague future, not when external circumstances magically improve, but starting today, in this very moment. Elevate your emotional state through the deliberate and intentional use of language. Rather than simply thinking positive thoughts in a passive and disconnected way, choose thoughts that actively generate high-frequency emotional states. Genuine, heartfelt gratitude, authentic excitement for possibilities, deep, expansive inspiration, profound, unconditional love, and the kind of quiet, abiding joy that does not depend on fleeting external conditions, but arises from within. Emotion, powerfully combined with thought, is the potent fuel that ignites genuine, lasting transformation. When you combine new and elevated thoughts with the corresponding emotional states they naturally generate, you create a powerful condition of being, an energetic resonance that draws new experiences, new people, and new opportunities toward you, with a magnetic force that often feels almost inexplicable. The power of a gratitude-based internal dialogue cannot be overstated or dismissed as mere sentimentality. It is a fundamental shift in perception and energetic alignment. Instead of dwelling on what is absent from your life or lamenting what you lack, begin speaking to yourself about what you are genuinely grateful to have right now in this present moment. Cultivate an active appreciation. Instead of complaining about your current circumstances or perceived limitations, acknowledge and deeply appreciate how far you have already traveled, the progress you have already made, and the challenges you have already overcome. Instead of worrying incessantly about an uncertain future, cultivate a deep appreciation for the opportunities that are already finding their way to you, the blessings that are already present. Speak about your future as though it is already gracefully unfolding in the present moment, a living reality. For example, I am deeply grateful for the success and abundance that is flowing effortlessly into my life. Or, I love and profoundly appreciate the confident, capable, and compassionate person I am gracefully becoming. Or, I appreciate how naturally and effortlessly I attract the right circumstances, the right opportunities, and the right supportive people into my life. This is not self-deception. It is the profound act of aligning your inner dialogue, your deepest intentions, and your consciousness with the true, expansive direction of your life's highest trajectory. It's an act of conscious co-creation. When you begin shifting your internal conversation in these profound ways, your body, an incredibly responsive instrument, responds almost immediately and without delay, manifesting these inner changes physically. Stress hormones, which wreak havoc on the body, begin to significantly decrease because you are no longer constantly triggering the chronic fight or flight response through relentless negative self-talk and anxious rumination. Your immune system gradually strengthens and becomes more resilient because you are no longer depleting it through chronic self-criticism and sustained, debilitating anxiety. Your energy levels rise dramatically because you are no longer exhausting yourself through constant internal conflict, the grinding effort of resisting your own thoughts, and the silent war you are waging within. You will begin sleeping more deeply and restoring more completely because your mind is no longer locked in combat with negative scenarios and cycles of self-blame through the night. You will awaken feeling genuinely rested, refreshed, and invigorated. Your digestion improves, your blood pressure stabilizes, and your heart rhythm becomes more coherent and regulated, reflecting a newfound inner peace. Your body literally begins healing from the accumulated damage of chronic stress and the years of toxic internal conversation you have been unwittingly directing at yourself. When you cease poisoning yourself with destructive thinking, your entire physical system, finally freed from the exhausting work of defending against a constant internal assault, can redirect all of that previously squandered energy toward genuine repair, profound regeneration, and vital renewal. You begin looking healthier, more vibrant, more alive. You begin feeling younger, more energetic, more aligned, because you are no longer at war with yourself on the inside. Your dreams may even begin to shift dramatically in quality and tone because your subconscious mind is now processing healthier, more constructive symbolic material, communicating in the rich archetypal language that Jung spent his lifetime decoding. You may begin waking with innovative solutions already forming, with creative insights arriving before you have even fully opened your eyes, tapping into a deeper source of wisdom. The transformation in your relationships, both personal and professional, will surprise and perhaps even astonish you. When you fundamentally alter the way you speak to yourself, your interactions with every other person in your life automatically begin to transform as well, like ripples expanding outward. You become more genuinely confident, more naturally positive, and far more enjoyable to be around because your inner state radiates outward. People begin noticing a profound change in you, even when they cannot articulate precisely what has shifted or why you seem different. You become less defensive in difficult conversations because you are no longer constantly attacking yourself on the inside and therefore do not need to protect yourself so vigilantly on the outside, creating a more open posture. You become more open to honest feedback and genuine criticism because you are no longer filtering every piece of information through a painful lens of relentless self-judgment and insecurity. You become more generous and patient with others because you have learned, through conscious practice, to be genuinely generous and patient with yourself first, establishing a new inner foundation. You begin attracting an entirely different quality of people and circumstances into your life because you are now operating from an entirely different energetic frequency, radiating a new vibration. This is a genuine leap in authentic confidence and profound self-assurance, and the people around you feel it immediately and instinctively. When you stop tearing yourself down in the privacy of your own inner world, you naturally stand taller, speak with greater clarity, and connect with others from a place of authentic presence, vulnerability, and strength, rather than anxious performance or desperate seeking of external validation. People are deeply drawn to this quality of energy. In a world often populated by individuals who are constantly at war with themselves, perpetually struggling with inner demons, your hard-won inner peace becomes something genuinely rare, something profoundly attractive, something that others feel and gravitate towards, without necessarily being able to articulate or name it. When you address yourself with deep, consistent respect and unwavering self-love, you naturally extend that same respectful foundation and unconditional regard to every relationship you enter, raising the standard for connection. When you genuinely believe in yourself from the inside, a conviction that emanates from your core, others feel that powerful conviction and, almost inevitably, begin believing in you as well. Let us be completely honest and transparent with each other about what lies ahead on this transformative journey. Your old habits, deeply entrenched and often unconscious, will undoubtedly resist this profound change with considerable force. These mental patterns, these internal scripts, have been governing your life for years, perhaps even for decades, shaping your reality, and they have absolutely no intention of releasing their tenacious grip without a significant struggle. You may, at times, find yourself forgetting to practice, unconsciously drifting back into familiar, limiting thought patterns, or even feeling temporarily worse as you become increasingly aware of just how pervasive and profoundly negative your internal conversation has actually been all along. This resistance, far from being a sign of failure, is entirely normal, and, in truth, a deeply encouraging sign. As Jung himself noted, it is clear evidence that you are changing something that genuinely matters, something fundamental to your animal being. The old personality, the one constructed layer by layer upon years of negative self-talk, self-doubt, and limited beliefs, does not wish to dissolve. It wants to keep you safely contained within the familiar, albeit often painful, territory it knows, even when that territory is causing you genuine harm, suffering, and stagnation. Anticipate this inevitable resistance, acknowledge its presence, and make the firm, unwavering decision in advance that you will not allow it to pull you off course, to derail your progress. You may also encounter skepticism, both from within your own rational mind and from the people around you. Your rational mind may stubbornly insist that something this seemingly straightforward, this simple, cannot possibly produce real, tangible results, doubting its efficacy. The people in your immediate environment, often unconsciously resistant to your growth, may question what you are doing or subtly attempt to draw you back into the old, familiar, and limited conversations you used to share with them, those comfort zones of negativity. All of this, without exception, is simply a natural, expected, and integral part of the process of profound change. Therefore, remain fiercely loyal to your practice, to your commitment to conscious internal dialogue, regardless of what others think, say, or attempt to project onto you. And if you forget to practice for a moment, an hour, or even a day, simply begin again, without self-condemnation. Do not use a moment of forgetfulness or a slip-up as evidence that this powerful approach does not work, or that you are somehow inherently incapable of genuine change. Treat it instead as a natural and expected part of any learning curve, a momentary wobble on the path to mastery. Every single moment you remember and consciously return to the practice of deliberate inner dialogue, you are actively strengthening the muscle of awareness itself, cultivating your inner power. Showing yourself genuine, unwavering compassion throughout this entire process is not optional. It is absolutely essential, the very bedrock of sustainable change. If you catch yourself criticizing yourself for being self-critical, you have simply added another layer onto the very pattern you are diligently working to dissolve. Instead, appreciate the moment of awareness itself. Celebrate each instance where you recognize the old pattern and consciously chose something better, something more supportive. Be patient, profoundly kind, and genuinely gentle with yourself as you develop this crucial new skill, this new way of being. Stay committed to the practice, even when outward results do not appear to be arriving on the precise schedule your ego has decided upon. Some individuals notice significant, dramatic shifts within a matter of hours or days, experiencing rapid transformation. Others require more time for the new roots of conscious dialogue to establish themselves deeply enough within their psyche to become visibly apparent in their outer lives. Trust the process completely, with unwavering faith. Every single moment of conscious and positive inner dialogue, every intentional thought, is restructuring your mind at a level far deeper than what the eye can see, reorganizing your very being. Even when no outward evidence of change is yet apparent, the work is always happening. When your motivation wavers, and it will undoubtedly waver at times, return immediately to the most fundamental, compelling reasons you began this journey in the first place. Remember what it has felt like to be under constant assault from your own mind, the pain of self-condemnation. Remember the expansive life you are profoundly committed to creating, and the powerful, authentic person you have consciously chosen to become, what Jung so eloquently called the individuated and fully integrated human being. Use these potent reminders as the unwavering fuel that keeps you moving forward, steadfastly and purposefully, when the road feels long, challenging, or uncertain. These are your anchors. Once the foundational practices are firmly established, and your new internal landscape begins to take shape, more advanced and potent dimensions of this practice become available to you, further deepening your transformation. Combining your conscious internal dialogue with deliberate, vivid visualization makes the entire practice dramatically more powerful and accelerates its effects. While speaking to yourself in positive, affirming, and empowering ways, simultaneously run vivid mental imagery of yourself succeeding, expanding, thriving, and living the life you are meticulously building. Immerse yourself in the sensory experience of your desired future. Use specific language patterns tailored precisely to different areas of your life that you wish to transform. If you are diligently working to transform your financial situation, speak to yourself in the language of abundance, genuine value creation, intelligent stewardship, and the powerful, generous energy of true prosperity. If health is your primary focus, speak in the vibrant language of vitality, resilience, profound strength, and continuous cellular renewal. Timing matters enormously in the efficacy of this practice. The first several minutes immediately upon waking, when your mind is still permeable from sleep, and the final minutes just before drifting into sleep, are the most potent, powerful windows available for installing new patterns into your subconscious. During these transitional states, your mind is operating in the receptive alpha and theta brainwave frequencies. It is vastly more receptive, impressionable, and open to suggestion than during ordinary active waking hours. Use these precious windows with full, deliberate intention, consciously programming your mind. Create deeply personal mantras and inner affirmations that resonate specifically and profoundly with you as an individual, rather than borrowing generic phrases that might feel hollow or disconnected from your truth. Develop an internal dialogue that speaks directly to your unique situation, your specific goals, and the particular challenges you are navigating on your path. Adjust your approach according to your own natural temperament and learning style. If you are analytically oriented, incorporate logic, reasoned arguments, and concrete evidence into your inner conversation, appealing to your intellect. If you are emotionally driven, focus on how these new thoughts genuinely feel in your body, connecting with the emotional resonance. If you are naturally creative and imaginative, work extensively with metaphor, powerful symbols, and vivid, rich imagery, allowing your imagination to lead the way. The ultimate, overarching aim of this entire journey is never to simply complete 7 days and then return to unconscious living, The profound aim is to make conscious and deliberate inner dialogue as natural, as automatic, and as indispensable as breathing itself, your new default way of moving through and interacting with the world, a constant wellspring of inner strength and guidance. Right now, in this precise, pivotal moment, you are standing at a genuine crossroads. You can choose to continue living inside the old, limiting internal conversation that has inadvertently generated the life you currently have, repeating familiar patterns. Or you can make a revolutionary decision, starting with the very next thought that crosses your mind, to speak to yourself differently, to choose a new path. The profound transformation does not begin next week or next month or when circumstances become ideal. It begins fundamentally with the very next word you say to yourself, the very next thought you consciously choose to entertain. Your future self is not a distant fantasy, an unreachable ideal. As Carl Jung understood with extraordinary depth and clarity, that person already exists within you right now, fully formed as pure, vibrant potential, waiting patiently for the inner conversations, the conscious activations that will finally call them forward into the light of manifest reality. Every single moment you speak to yourself as that person, as your highest, most authentic self, you become them a little more completely, a little more profoundly, embodying their qualities in the present. Subscribe to Carl Jung Philosophy for more content that reaches beneath the surface of how we think, feel, and ultimately create our lives. Share this transformative message with someone who is truly ready to change the most important conversation they will ever have, the one they are having incessantly with themselves.